Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you for another review. This time coming at you to review the relatively recently released on Blu-ray film, which I think got, I can't remember, I think it was more or less kind of popular and is popular or was well received. I think, not that it matters, I think it got Leonardo DiCaprio an Oscar and I think Best Director for the director and whatever. So I'm not even 100% sure how to pronounce it, but I'm coming at you to review The Revenant. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it or not. I've never heard anyone pronounce it, so that's how I'm going to pronounce it. If you watch the last review I did, which was for Hateful Eight, and other reviews, I've mentioned that I'm not really huge on going to the theater these days anymore, especially more so even more during the winter when it's just hard as hell to drag yourself out in the cold and sit through all the previews and just whatever, noisy, you never know who you're going to get sitting around you or by you or whatever. So this is a movie that I was interested in seeing, and if I was a big theater goer, I would have went to the theater to see it. This movie, I think, is directed by the same guy who did Gravity, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, I went to the theater way back in the day like that came out like a long time ago. But I went to the theater back when Gravity was in the theater because I thought that looked good, and sure enough, I really, really liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I still like it, but having seen it again after that, I'm not too sure it's as good as I thought it was, but it's still really good. And undeniably the visual effects are freaking fantastic. So, you know, I had and especially since this is like an outdoor movie, outdoor epic if you will, I had this feeling that this was going to be a movie that I was really going to like. So I figured I'd just blind buy it when it came out. So I think it came out last week and I got it for $17.99, which is not too bad on Blu-ray. And I just watched it last night and darn it, I was sure this was going to be a 4-star movie for me. I was sure this was going to be something that was just going to be glorious, amazing, you know, outdoor. I mean, the whole movie basically, you know, you could say 98% of it takes place outdoors in the wilderness. I'm a outdoors guy, wilderness guy. I love nature and just woods and, you know, big whatever. I love the wilderness and stuff like that. And I figured this would be a fantastic wilderness movie. And, you know, I guess it's the wilderness aspect of it is pretty fantastic. But unfortunately, what ended up happening is the movie is so grisly and depressing in its subject matter that it kind of almost, you know, the depressingness and the grisliness of the subject matter, it kind of overshadows the beauty for me of, you know, the beautiful nature stuff. It's like the depressing feel throughout the whole movie from the very beginning when there's that, like, you know, Indian attack on the whoever they are, the people getting, I only saw it once and it was yesterday. I'm not even sure exactly what the hell happened at the beginning, if these people, you know, these white people were stealing pelts from Indians or making their own I can't remember. But at any rate, the movie opens with this like Indian versus white people battle, and you know, Leonardo DiCaprio's got a part, you know, half Indian son from obviously a full Indian woman, and I can't remember if they were together with the woman at the, you know, with Leonardo's, you know, mother to his son at the beginning, or if she was never in the, I can't remember. The beginning of the movie was a blur, but what I'm saying is the very beginning, from the get-go, this movie with that kind of Indian, you know, versus white man battle massacre scene kind of gets off to a, you know, kind of a dreary and depressing start, and it basically, in my opinion, never lets up, which is kind of a bummer for 2.5 hours worth of just depressing, dreary, you know, vengeful, thought-ish movie. I really don't like to know what a movie's about before I see it. So I didn't read the back of the box, not that it really would have changed. I still would have probably bought it anyway, but so I guess I thought it was more of a just based on images and trailer or whatever. I don't know if I even saw the trailer. I can't remember. I must have seen at least one. Yeah, I've seen at least one. I thought it was more, you know, man versus the elements more than man versus man, and it is more along the line of man versus man. You have Tom Hardy, which plays basically the the baddie in this movie, which I didn't know there was a baddie. I just kind of hoped it was a man versus nature movie, which would have been much more. I mean, it is. It's like man versus man and man versus nature, but for me, the man versus man and the the vengeance aspect of it, and white versus Indian and all this shit kind of overshadowed any man versus nature aspect of the movie, because you always had, if they always kept cutting back to Tom Hardy, so you could never really forget about him. And I kind of wanted to forget about that character, but the filmmaker didn't let you forget about the character. It's like, oh yeah, in case you got drawn into the beautiful natureness of it, here's Tom Hardy again being deceptive and lying to the whoever and taking the $300. And so, long story short, the movie was kind of a bummer. It was kind of like, oh, I should have not bought it. I'll probably rewatch it soon, just to try to enjoy more of the nature beauty, nature photography, and try to set myself apart from the more grisly negative. I'm sure it's not going to work because it didn't work the first time, but because the negative, vengeful man versus man aspect is so heavily, I was going to say heavy and prevalent in this movie, it's really hard to enjoy the arguably many, great nature, beautiful nature shots and, photography in the movie. This movie was shot, I'm pretty sure, well, I think it was, from what I can gather, was shot digitally, of a range of different Ks, if it's, 5, 6K, whatever. It was shot digitally, and, this is proof that, a movie doesn't have to be an absolute, a movie shot digitally can work. I mean, if you just let it kind of be and whatever, and not, like, I don't know what, not overdo the, whatever. So I mean, obviously, I'm sure that the frickin' torch scenes were lit by the torches, I imagine, because you can shoot at lower light with digital and stuff. So I'm not completely against digital movies. This is an example of a well done digital movie. As long as I'm talking about well done, I will say that visually the movie is fantastic. And I watched it on the projector with 5.1 surround. The audio, is absolutely amazing. I love the wide lens look to it and stuff. And when it pans, it's just like this dizzying. I mean, not that I got dizzy, but it's this really cool effect that's not seen too terribly often in movies. But the whole movie is pretty much has this wide lensed, whatever appearance to it, which I really liked and stuff like that. But so the stuff by firelight or shot by firelight or torches, and you could actually you actually got what I presume to be, I mean, it could always be special effects, but what I presume to be actual shots of the night sky with the real moon in it. Of course, might not be the real moon, it might be visual effects, but lots of beautiful nature in it, and a relatively cool Leonardo DiCaprio getting mauled by a computer generated, I'm assuming it's like a combination, I don't know, combination of computer generated and puppetry, whatever. They do these things in this movie kind of like with Birdman, where it's they'll make scenes look like longer takes through digital transitions and stuff like that, and whatever. I mean, in retrospect, I'm kind of like, well, if you can't do a full take, I don't know, this faking a full take is kind of a cop-out in a way, where something passes, in front of the screen to do a cut. And of course now with digital you can do a cut more sneakily, where the whole frame doesn't have to be covered up like Escape from New York, where you have that go into black and come out of black. Now you can do digital, dissolves where whatever. So long story short, this movie was just 2.5 hours of, basically depressingness, and also found it very, unrealistic, the fact that he's got, I mean, he would be, it's yeah, this is just the gripe. I mean, yes, it's a movie, but I don't know, personally, I think it's more believable in a movie if it's more believable. I think he would have been, I don't know. He was pretty mauled by the bear, and I'm surprised that he could do anything at all for the remainder of the movie. But of course he does, and his foot looks like it's all broken, and then later on it's fine. He's walking on it, and I don't know. So this movie is not, you know, is not what I'd hoped. I thought it was more man versus elements, man versus nature, but it's, you know, more, you know, the very beginning of the movie with the Indians, you know, versus the whites was kind of, it really put me off. I didn't know that this was a movie like that, but, you know, with Indians versus whites and stuff, and it started the movie on a kind of a depressing thing, you know, tone that never was able to regain. I mean, obviously it never, it just continued to depress when, you know, well, without, I won't spoil it, but I'll say, you know, later on after he's mauled by the bear, you know, another depressing, you know, extremely depressing thing happens, and, you know, which is basically the reason for the remainder of the movie, I guess. Just, you know, I guess he was, yeah, at first I was like, why is he even continuing on? But it was kind of like, I guess, a revenge story. And what I thought was really lame is, of course, you got the battle at the end, you know, hand-to-hand combat, whatever, and then he's just about to kill him, kind of like, you know, whatever. He was just about to, you know, do the last thing to kill this Tom Hardy, and he's like, oh, you know, then he got religion that kind of comes into the movie, and being a non-religious guy, that was kind of obviously never fun to see, and it's kind of like, oh, I'm not going to kill him, I'm going to let, you know, whatever decide. And then it's so ironic because then he just pushes him into the stream where a few meters down the stream the Indians are that just kill him anyway, and he knew that when he pushed him into the stream he could see the Indians right there, that they were going to kill him. So it's basically killing him by, you know, proxy or whatever, by not actually doing it. But here, you do it, you know, it's still killing him because you didn't save him, you just whatever. So I found the movie, you know, and then adding to the unrealisticness of the movie, you know, galloping off a cliff and with the horse and landing in the, you know, having the tree break the fall, and, you know, he'd be probably dead there. And then he, as soon as I saw the horse laying there, I thought of Empire Strikes Back, and surely, of course, you know, there's a blizzard coming, and wouldn't you know it, he slices the horse open, takes out the intestines and gets in the horse, and all this kind of stuff to, grisly stuff to kind of provoke a reaction from the audience. I thought that a lot of the stuff was a way to just, an easy way to get a ooh, gross, or, you know, visceral reaction, and I think a lot of times movies do this, go a cheap route to get, you know, some kind of visceral response from the viewer, and I find it more or less a cheap way to do it. Instead of earning your, you know, responses, they kind of go, well, I don't know, we can just get in a horse and that'll get a lot of responses. So you know, so I felt, I was disappointed by its lack of, I guess, originality, and seeing so many things, you know, having seen so many other movies in this movie as it continued to wear on, and disappointed by the baddie, the fact that it had this bad guy, which I feel like I've seen a million times, where, you know, this bad guy trying to, you know, not that he's trying to out, because he didn't know he was alive until the end, but not that he's trying to outrun the, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, but just continually cutting back to the bad guy and seeing him, you know, ongoing deceit, whether it's with the kid he's with lying to leave Leonardo DiCaprio's side, or whatever. It was just, I don't know, you know, it was a letdown. So at the end of the day, it was what I thought would be a sure 4-star movie for me, ended up being only half that. I'm afraid I can only go 2 stars out of 4 for the Revenant. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. If it's not how you pronounce it, you know what I'm talking about. The Leonardo DiCaprio movie where he's just going all the time. And, you know, granted, yeah, he did good. I mean, I'm not a big Oscar or Academy Awards fan anyway, but was this worthy of a Academy, you know, whatever. I mean, it doesn't, who cares, I guess. I mean, he didn't have to, you know, memorize a lot of dialogue, which was a plus, you know. So, undeniably, you know, beautiful scenery. Of course, how much of it is real, you never know these days, which is kind of ruins it, because when you're looking at a movie these days and something's really cool, it's like, okay, because they can fake anything, you're kind of like, as you're watching it, it kind of ruins it, because it's like, oh, that's really cool, and then you're like, well, that might not even be real. And it'd be nice to have a movie like going into it where it's kind of like, you know everything's real, and you know, and so you can enjoy it. You know, back in the old days before CG, if there was a nature movie and a movie with all kinds of beautiful panoramas and nature shots, you knew it was real, because if it wasn't real, it looked fake. You know, now they can do fake that looks so real that you know what I'm saying, and it's like, yeah. So I hope that yeah, most of the nature shots and stuff were real and not fake. And well, feel free to let me know what you think of this movie. I know that I think it was kind of a more or less popular movie, or is, or whatever. And you know, I was sitting there watching it last night, and I'm going, gosh dang, I can't even imagine wanting to see it again. But now, you know, having time passed, a whole hell of a lot, of couple out, you know, 12 hours or upwards of 24 hours passed, I kind of do want to see it and reevaluate it. I'm sure I'll think the same of it. I mean, it usually, you know, it's so depressing that I don't think there's a single. It's very much, it reminded me of that movie I watched and reviewed this year called, can't remember what the hell it's called, Winter is Bone, where there wasn't a single character in the movie. I can't remember who went. You know, again, it's, you know, grisly day, grisly times, and you know, I suppose back in the, you know, back in the day when life was tough, there wasn't a lot of smiles on faces, so maybe it's realistic in that regard. But I don't know. I guess I find a more or less nothing but depressing, you know, or downtrodden movie more or less depressing these days, and not so like fascinating. I may have thought that about this at every point in my life, but anyway, 2 stars out of 4 for this movie. Afraid I can't really recommend it. I mean, it's got great, you know, I love how it's shot, you know, like I say, it's shot fantastically, and you know, and stuff like that, and it's, you know, I guess more violent than I thought it would be, and which I'm not saying in a good way. It was kind of put me off. I really seem to be becoming almost old ladyish as I get older in regards to like on-screen violence and shit. But I guess if it's more realistic, I'm more put off by it. If it's more fantastical, it's kind of like not as bad because it's so ridiculous. But whatever. That's my review of this particular movie, which I believe is pronounced Revenant. I'm not sure. I don't even know. I was going to look that up, and I don't know what that means. So I don't know what the title means, and I'm not sure how to say it. So with that, I will, I guess, close the review. Feel free to let me know what you think of the movie. You think I'm completely off base? You agree with me? It's either way, it's fine. I mean, this is just my opinion, and your opinion's yours. So feel free to leave me some feedback, and be sure to catch me in my next video. See you next time.